Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak briefly with you here this morning. Now, in most law-making assemblies, most legislatures around the world, you'll probably find there's a small group of people who really have a deep understanding of climate change, who absolutely get it, and it's a big part of why they're in politics, is to affect change. Probably, you'll also have a group of people who are solid climate skeptics, who are absolutely opposed to climate action, and whatever you do, whatever you say, you're never going to convince them. But in between those two extremes, there is a large, squishy middle. They are aware that this is an issue which is spoken of a lot, that is in their post back from different directions. They're conscious of a need for action, but their awareness and understanding is relatively limited. And that poses a significant risk, because we know that lawmakers across the world are increasingly being targeted with disinformation, with pseudoscience which appears to tell them that climate change is a hoax, that action is wrong, or it appears to sound like it's supporting the need for action, but actually is telling a different narrative. So getting high quality analysis into the hands of lawmakers and getting it to be understood and read is really, really important. So last year, we worked with one of the biggest environmental groups in the UK Parliament called Peers for the Planet to produce this guide, all of you have a copy of this to cut out and keep, which intended to provide an easy and accessible guide to understand the fundamentals of climate change. We knew that for this to work, the guide had to be authoritative. There had to be names in there where either the institutions, and this was for the British Parliament, so therefore the Met Office, or the individuals, people like Nick Stern, who's very well known, widely respected, meant that immediately they had credentials for that political audience. They were likely to be taken seriously. We knew it had to be accessible. Alex here did an amazing job of translating scientist into human, where sometimes the initial versions were a bit too technical. And we know that we'd lose your average lawmaker who tends not to have a scientific background. Each chapter is about 650 pages long. It's just a double spread you can open up with some pretty pictures and graphs to make it easy for people to read in chunks. And thirdly, we knew that we had to drive adoption of this. We had to drive people into engaging with it. So for that reason, this was given out physically to every member of Parliament with a personal covering letter from a cross-party group of well-known grandees, Labour, Conservative, Liberal Democrat, crossbench, so that between them, they could convey, with a letter addressed individually to the member, why this was important, why they would encourage them to read this. And we then had a reception in Parliament. And normally in the UK Parliament, when you have these, you do not get many lawmakers turning up. But on this occasion, we had a really high number of legislators there with a group of climate scientists and enabling them to engage, to ask questions. And what was wonderful to see was, often the MPs were a bit embarrassed to say, look, this is probably a stupid question, and our colleagues, the scientists who were there, were delighted to have those conversations and to be able to go back to first principles and to explain it. In addition to all members of Parliament, this also went to every active member of the House of Lords. Now, if you've ever seen members of the House of Lords, active is a term one uses with some care, but this meant basically those who engage in debates, those who turn up and vote. And it then went out much more widely as well. We worked with the Labour Climate and Environment Forum and the Conservative Environment Network to have digital versions of this, PDF versions, sent out to all their members across the country, all those party members who might engage. There's a group called UK 100 who provided it on out to local councillors and members of the devolved assemblies. We worked with the British Chambers of Commerce and the CBI, with the Royal Society, the National Trust, for it to be distributed and promoted through their networks. The British Foreign Office sent it out digitally to every British foreign mission, every British diplomatic mission across the world, so that they had it there. And it also was translated first into Azerbaijani and launched during COP29, working jointly with Baku State University. And Professor Babayev, the rector, has actually arranged for the Azerbaijani translation to be sent electronically to every student in Azerbaijan. And given Azerbaijan's position as a strong petrostate, it's really good that they will have this in their inboxes. And there are further translations into other languages in the works as well. This was kind of a skunk works project. After it had happened, one of my colleagues on the University Executive Board said, "Why didn't you set up a committee to oversee this?" And obviously, had we set up a committee, we would still be talking about it now. We wouldn't have got anywhere. So we sort of flew under the radar. We spent very little money on this. I think the total cost between the organisations in Parliament and ourselves, including the reception, was about £5,000. But it's had real reach. It's been quoted in Parliament in both houses. It's been quoted by ministers at the dispatch box. We've actually had a minister in response to a climate skeptic question saying, well, in the Parliamentarian's Guide to Climate Change, I see that Professor Endersby states, and literally quoting from the guide. So it's brilliant to see that impact. And I think it comes back to the point. Gatherings like this one today, like other ones happening across Exeter this week, are wonderful for those of us who are on board with this to meet and converse. But that's never enough. We have to reach out beyond our comfort zones to those, perhaps not the irreconcilables. There's probably not a lot of point in engaging with those who are never going to believe us, but those who are unsure, who are uncertain, who have never been given the equipment to be able to engage. And I think that is a vital task for all of us ahead. Thank you.